and welcome to a two-part discussion for the Federal News Network series, Delivering the Tech That Delivers for Government, where we talk with technologists from leading federal systems integrators about the enterprise technology that helps agencies meet their mission. I'm Vanessa Roberts, and I'm excited to be talking with my guest today about two topics essential for government contractors when it comes to helping agencies really meet their mission objectives, especially those unique and complex goals that many of them have: innovation and digital maturity. Those are the topics for today. Joining me for these discussions, sponsored by Future Tech Enterprise, are Doug Bourgeois, the Managing Director for Engineering Transformation at Deloitte; Richard Jasek, the Chief Digital Officer and Senior Vice President at Brilliant; Adam Shepard, NG Fellow for Digital Engineering at Northrop Grumman; and Mike Watkinson, the Chief Revenue Officer at Future Tech Enterprise. Welcome to the table, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation and learning about how each of you are really driving innovation forward and kind of how that's affecting the enterprise technology in your organizations. And so let's just dive right in, shall we? Adam, let's start with you. Let's talk a little bit about how you effectively drive innovation in your organization and how that is really helping you support federal customers. Can you
Sure.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so driving innovation is in Northrop Grumman's DNA. If you look at our workforce, we have a very innovative spirit. It's something that we pride ourselves in specifically, as you mentioned, to meet our customers' missions. The battle spaces that we face today require us to out-innovate our competitors, and that's exactly what we are focused on doing through technology, through digital engineering, which is my area of specialization. And so it's just keeping abreast of those latest technologies, innovating and inserting those technologies where appropriate to meet our customers' missions.
Right. Does anybody want to tag in on that a little bit, jump in?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think that when I look at the really talented project teams that Brilliant has in place that are supporting mission operations, supporting business operations, and enabling those for government, what I'm amazed at is the level of innovation that I call grassroots. It's just happening on the projects with the customers in order to better help taxpayers, constituents, citizens, immigrants, and every customer of our government. And so a big part of my job is helping to seed those ideas across different projects and to recognize that innovation and showcase it to other projects. That's not enough, though. We have a very close partnership with local universities that are doing research that can be beneficial to the government. We are a founding member of a one-of-its-kind collaborative that George Mason University has set up called the AI and Government Council, where we work to align the research, the advanced research that's going on in universities with the research and development that organizations like ours are doing with the actual needs of government. And we've already found so many translational research opportunities of things that were going on in the lab that are just steps away from being deployed for beneficial use by government and by our projects. So it's a very exciting way to help seed that innovation and keep it moving forward.
Bring more energy to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, at Deloitte, we're a technology-first, alliance-focused organization, right? So technology first means that we're constantly scanning the landscape and bringing innovative technologies that we embed with our methods and our processes to bring the latest capabilities to our government clients through innovation. Now, the alliance side of that means that we have strong and ongoing and deep relationships with all of the leading technology vendors, and we leverage those relationships to bring our expertise to bring the access to the technology for government clients. And then the kind of like the icing on the cake that makes it all work is our strong capability in change management allows us to bring the innovation through technology, bringing the latest and greatest innovations, but doing so in a way that is not disruptive to our clients and their operations.
Right. That disruptive thing is always a challenge, right, Mike?
It is, yeah. I mean, as a technology systems integrator, we think a lot about new technologies, but our value is really in helping complex organizations understand where there is innovation happening. And that shadow IT is now shadow AI, and so creating some visibility for that and understanding where it's happening really helps the customers understand what's becoming more standard over time.
So the word challenges came up a couple times during that discussion. Maybe Richard, maybe you could start off here, talk about what are the challenges you see in supporting that now consumption-based OpEx model that's required to be more agile?
So when we bring these op techs back to the organization and when we deploy them, we're trying to make it so that our teams can supercharge our customers' mission. And so one of the challenges is what should be a shared resource, what should be an automatic shared capability, and what should be sort of a buy by the drink piece of technology that gets deployed with that project. Finding that level of balance is a challenge. Obviously, water should be free, but your mixed drink might cost a little extra. But what we want to do is keep pushing that envelope and enabling our teams to do that in a better way. And a decade ago, FinOps, financial ops of IT infrastructure and enabled technologies and emergent technologies was just a good idea. Now it's required because we have to be able to track those costs, find out which ones are being used to the best leverage for our customer environments.
So Doug, as a follow-up onto that, maybe talk about how the things that Richard just brought up are really, plus the customer demands, are kind of changing how you are addressing lifecycle management, right? And the strategy that you're taking there compared to more traditional on-premise, although now we're looking at that hybrid world. So there's a lot going on, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think, again, when you look at legacy approaches to lifecycle management, things were very rigid, things were very serial, things were very well defined, and they followed a very structured methodology, right? But innovation and advancement in technology, and the latest is AI, but it coupled with cloud, has enabled a much more agile, a much more iterative, and a much more malleable type of an approach to lifecycle management, right? So what that does is it brings the ability to segment out and to isolate changes for the client and their operation so that they can get the value of the innovation very rapidly through agile methodologies that are iterative, but at the same time, and that's a significant advancement in lifecycle management, but at the same time then balance the put boundaries around the changes to the operation so it doesn't affect or disrupt the operation too significantly with each deployment, right? So it gives the client or the government agency the opportunity to manage that change and to balance the innovation with advancement in the business operations.
Right, you kind of can learn as you go a little bit quicker, right? Yeah. And that's what you're trying to do too.
That's exactly right. And so where we talked about, maybe removing some of the serial nature of development, now we are all operating in the same ecosystem, and so we can have some of the traditional downstream experts, manufacturing and sustainment, actually influencing the design, creating a better product. That also includes our customer, is collaborating with our customer early in the design phase allows us to, they're the ones going to be using these products for their mission. We want to elicit that feedback from them to enhance the successfulness of our products.
Right. Is the scale issue a challenge in government, though, when you're talking about these things? And yes, in practice it's a great idea, but then actually scaling it to the size a lot of federal operations, that's a tricky part, right?
Sure. Historically, it's been a problem, but I would say with new technology, with new capability, you're starting to see that barrier to entry reduce. And that's what we're focused on doing, is continuing to innovate on that.
But I think you hit on a key topic, which is this scale-up problem, and we've seen it for decades in government. You can't go 5 minutes without seeing a successful pilot or a successful prototype. But 99% of those, when it's time to scale them up and apply them more broadly to the enterprise, struggle or outright fail. And that's part of a cultural phenomenon. It's part of a phenomenon, a science of dealing with very large organizations. It's part of how you apply organizational development and change management techniques and approaches to getting that thing scaled up and working for everyone. It's part of alignment to mission. And I always say those soft skills, those organizational development, change management, they don't make transformation projects easy, they make them possible.
That's true.
Right? It's still hard. And a lot of that ties to the level of maturity of the organization as well.
Yeah, we've taken a very deliberate approach to the human element of these transformations. Everything from rolling out products, making it easy to consume, training our individuals, training our customer counterparts, to interact with how our ecosystem works is very critical. And so agree with Richard's statement is the human element of this change is just as important as the technology.
Right.
Yeah, I think to rephrase, I think what I'm hearing is very much in tune with what we see in the marketplace every day, right? Handling the challenge of scale is a two-pronged, opportunity. One is on the technology side. Cloud is the fundamental underlying capability that enables most innovation in the marketplace today, and cloud's capabilities being agile, iterative, the opportunity to test and scale very quickly, but also to roll those back if problems arise, right? Combining that with the human element as the enablement is what we refer to it in my engineering transformation practice, right? Is how we are planning for, how we are preparing clients in their operations as well as their technical folks to make sure they're able to support the new innovation and the operations folks to be able to use it appropriately, as well as support so that if something happens then there's rapid break fix and things are addressed in a very timely manner for the operation to continue to hum along.
Right. Well, maybe, Mike, talk about like balancing those two things. That change management piece, right, which is where I was going to go in the next question. So you guys went right there. It went naturally there. Is balancing that, but also getting that innovation, because that's sometimes like, getting the change management, and it's in your own organization and making sure everybody in your own organization can take advantage of it, but it's also in that partner organization. And you all talked about that, being closer partners with your federal agencies that you're working for. So maybe talk about that part of it.
Yeah, when we say lifecycle management, I think of innovation and standards and technical debt. And ultimately, we want to eliminate technical debt to get to some form of digital maturity. We're having the cloud conversation, and it's like if we just lift and shift to cloud, we still have some degree of technical debt. And are we really doing change management for those workloads? Should we be refactoring? Should we be retaining any of those applications? So I think ultimately, cloud and some of the repatriation that we see is a result of losing control over that life cycle management and ultimately eliminating some of that technical debt. So it's got a lot to do with that virtuous loop of fostering innovation, finding standards, and creating a roadmap to digital maturity.
You guys have come up with some ideas about how to do that, right? Maybe share a little bit about one of those.
Yeah, so the most important thing is bringing everybody together using not just tools or digital tools, but integrated digital tools that really allow that collaboration. And so that's where we want the downstream users to see what's happening upstream so they can understand how we use a product, how we design, how we manufacture, but then how it's used in the field as well. Right. So by combining everybody in the same ecosystem, that's what's very important, where we've seen a lot of success.
Adam, would you mind if I ask you a question about that?
Of course.
So when you create a program and foundational infrastructure for the program, ultimately you have an outcome in mind, you develop an ATO infrastructure for that outcome. These are long-term programs. So how do you manage life cycle and new technologies and innovation throughout the life cycle of an extended program?
Yeah, so I think, it goes back to scale. When we architect that environment, we focus on scaling that environment. A lot of times these programs go for decades. So, none of us at the table, though we are technologists and experts in our areas, know where the industry is going to be in 10 years. But we have to just stay, consistent and maybe if I can go back a little bit, we have to stay relevant in the industry, see where the industry is going, and then make our ecosystem adaptable for some of that technology that is yet to be invented.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm gonna make a plug for a purposeful approach for managing innovation. It can happen organically, but it doesn't always, and it doesn't necessarily. And so when I talk to our project teams and our delivery teams, one of my first questions is always, how are you tracking innovations? Where's your idea list? Where's your register of thoughts that you want to bring to the customer, bring to the office, bring to the researchers that we're working with on the shared projects? Where are your ideas? How are you discussing them in team meetings, and how are they being managed and tracked? If you allow it to sort of take place accidentally, it can happen in a really organic, nice way.
Or get lost.
Or get lost, exactly right.
Yeah, when you talk about managing the innovation, right, and tracking its execution, right? At Deloitte, we bring technology advancements to develop innovative technology solutions for our clients through a platform that we call Silicon to Service, right? And that platform helps agencies gain access to a hybrid cloud infrastructure that is both future ready and mission focused. And getting to the point of the innovation, right? It brings cloud readiness assessments, application modernization, and hybrid cloud architecture, which opens up the door for the government to adopt new technologies very rapidly and isolating the disruption to their ongoing operations. And it does that through a lifecycle management lens by bringing a modular plug-and-play integration approach, which also allows the opportunity to more effectively manage the innovation and to incrementally provide these new capabilities for government agencies, which ultimately just limits their mission risk by isolating those changes into manageable chunks, right? So the point is that a lot of times the technology can help balance the innovation in lifecycle management and the innovation in technology, but do so in a way that's very thoughtful around the risk and allowing our clients to make advancements without disrupting the business operations.
And I want to pile on one more thing, which is what we've seen recently. Now, I'm an AI practitioner to the bone, been doing it for 20 years, but I am also one of the biggest AI skeptics you're going to find. One area where there has been an incredible amount of beneficial use of AI is in that envisioning of new processes, new technologies, new approaches to serving constituents, to serving taxpayers, to serving immigrants, to serving farmers, that you can now model so fast in silico and help the customer see the potential for, if you make a change to the policy like this, this is what the impact can be. If you make a change to the process like this, if you make a change to the guidelines for how these customers are dealt with, this is what the impact can be. And it's really enabled something that used to be a difficult process to something that's happening much more expediently. And it ties together that innovation in technology with that, let's re-envision how we're servicing the customer. Let's remove some of that friction and let's see the 7 different ways to do that and the 7 different steps to get there and use the tools to plan it out that way.
Is it 7 ways or 70 ways, right?
Exactly
It's
right.
the what if,
There's-
right?
yeah,
You
it's-
can actually get really close to that what if.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly
I love that you brought up AI because I was gonna mention, you talk about AI, something so new to clients and particularly to government agencies, is there's a strong need to be able to rapidly evaluate, build their own models, use their own data for those models, and then determine whether or not, you talked about scale earlier, whether or not it's worthy from an effectiveness and efficiency standpoint to go to high scale with that, right? And this is where another area where the combination and the balance of lifecycle management and technology through some hybrid cloud type of an architecture enables this rapid test, rapid evaluation, kind of fail fast but fail forward methodology by, in our case, with the Silicon to Service platform that I mentioned, bringing a full library of AI models with an AI optimized infrastructure that can be automatically provisioned to enable the government to rapidly test and evaluate new models and capabilities using AI.
Oh, you're trying to jump in over
Yeah,
there.
no, we're talking about the balance of trying to be programmatic about the approach as well as not stifling the innovation. I said shadow AI earlier. We transacted the first NVIDIA ELA in federal, and the result of that was that we were able to create access for people that were trying AI for the right licenses, the right discounts, et cetera. And so it sort of rose to the surface in terms of where that innovation was happening, and then you create some programmatic governance around the architectures and the skills required and so forth. So there's a balance there.
So let's start off talking a little bit, Richard, about the effect on supply chain management and how that is really changed within your organization and really being able to deliver to the customer the price and the timing that they want and need now. There's been some challenges and disruptions, right?
There have been some disruptions, and I think when people use the term supply chain, they're focused on physical things that have to move through a supply chain and may come on a ship from Asia. And that's important and critical. From our perspective, we deal with trusted partners that have supply chain visibility and supply chain transparency so that we can make sure we have a predictive way of understanding how those pieces are coming together. Our customers, however, Vanessa, they're dealing a lot more with what I call the virtual supply chain right now. And just because your iron has a trusted source and has been sourced from trusted providers and has been constructed using trusted approaches doesn't mean that your virtual supply chain has. And so our world now is focused on understanding where that infrastructure software came from, what pieces of open source and closed source tools are making up a part of that, maybe without the knowledge of the folks that are actually distributing that and deploying that. And so that's a really important part of what we do as well, which is understanding sort of the heredity of all that technology and that infrastructure stack. But for the 2020s, it's gotten even harder because now we're focused almost entirely on the information supply chain. We are at a point in the world where the democratization of these cool data utilities, which can be everything from a deep learning neural network to a large language model, are using and providing and sourcing and then spitting out and producing data that you have to kind of know where it came from. And so understanding that information supply chain, what's the provenance of this data? What are the sources of this data? Was the data correct when it came in and was it correct when it came out? We used to look at upstream and downstream systems and we'd look at them and say, yeah, no, that's a trusted system. I'm sure the data we're getting from that is solid. It's reputable, we can use it, we can rely on it to make decisions. That's not always the case now because even those systems are not necessarily aware of where that data was sourced and what tools were used to merge it and to change it. And we used to think about transforming data, but now we're worried about inferring data. What inferences were applied to that data that are making this data either more trustworthy or not? What happens if we rely on that to make decisions or to have our AI use that as input? So it's a whole different world of measuring, tracking, and monitoring that information supply chain.
And the client, the federal agency, is also asking more questions about that
Exactly.
and wanting regular accounting for that.
Or
right?
if they're not, they should be.
Yeah, I think from a Deloitte standpoint, being a technology first and alliance focused organization, right? The underlying key is securing, right? Securing the technology itself and the services that you use that rely on the underlying technology. In this case, I'm referring to the cloud for the most part, as well as securing the information pipeline, right? And so the combination there is one, going with proven, trusted cloud service providers that have already gone through and certified security rigor that includes supply chain review and security scrutiny, right, around the process, as well as combining that with robust cybersecurity practices that start at the front end of the life cycle and go all the way through validation and improvement and innovation and modernization cycles, right? So, a lot of times that ends up being the authority to operate process in the federal government, but combining the two together and then bringing, and this is where another area where we come in as a firm, is bringing cybersecurity expertise and experience to tie it all together, right? And apply the right standards at the right time. Using automation in some cases, using proven methods and techniques combined with that technology to make sure that the supply chain and the information and the underlying technologies that are providing the services in the cloud are in fact secure.
Right.
Richard, I like how we went from traditional physical supply chain to data provenance and so forth. I think there's another definition of supply chain, which is procurement. And from a procurement perspective, we've had some great success with customers that really lean into category management. And there's a whole new ecosystem of partners out there. There's a whole new set of strategic partners. And so resetting category management, aggregating spend where possible, and creating those strategic relationships is really key.
Yeah, I think when I've had these conversations over the course of this series, that idea of looking at everything you have and all the different partners and the way you're using things has become hyper expanded because you just have to now. This also gets us to that. We started going down that road about information and data. Maybe Adam, talk a little bit about this is an increasingly complex world. We've just laid it out here in the last few moments. But how do you address that? Yeah. And how are you looking at that and how are you managing that? And it's both within your organizations, but then it's with the partners, right?
Well, I would say, teeing off of what Richard mentioned too, is having data is obviously necessary, but our data is fragmented. It feels very fragmented. And so applying ways to aggregate that data together in order to make some of those data-driven decisions is very important. For us, we have data at multiple levels of security. And so trying to make informed decisions where things cross those boundaries of security become increasingly complex. When we start to look at large language models or other AI elements, the data that you are using to train those agentic AIs or the large language models becomes even that much more valuable. And so it's wrapping your arms around the data that you have, and we understand that our customers have a lot of that data that we need. We have a lot of the data that our customers need. How do we ultimately collaborate and bring those data sources together? It becomes crucially important.
It's another scale issue because in the government, the vast amounts of data, some of it not even tapped yet,
Right.
becomes how do you get to it? How do you bring it in? How do you decide what you're going to keep? And then you also touched on that classification. You know, there's always been this approach like just classify it all, it's easier. But then that doesn't make the data that you need transparent. It doesn't all need to be classified. Like, is this a challenge that everybody at this table is trying to address every day? I suspect so.
It is a challenge, I think. And when you talk about building AI, large language models, or I guess in some extent small language models as well, government agencies are still apprehensive about building those models outside of their data centers because they don't want to send their data into another environment, right? So, and that's another example of where, at least at this stage in the game, a hybrid cloud architecture does help bridge the gap. It brings the best of both worlds, meaning the security that you have with a private cloud architecture, whether it's in a government data center or in a third-party hosted data center environment, with rapid, secure access to cloud-based services in order to marry the two together, right? And I think that's where, at least this stage in the game, bringing a robust, secure hybrid cloud architecture is helping to enable the government to move forward with the building of those models now, but still keeping the data secure.
And Vanessa, to your point, the data problem is harder, not easier. And the new tools, the new innovations are even more reliant on that data. I think that's one reason you see an awful lot of chief AI officers were recently chief data officers before they took their current roles. And so when you add in the fact that there's so much available but unleveraged data, that's something where we really focus on with our customers. Because if you're relying on the data that's already schematicized and understood and in tables and accessible in your data lake or your data warehouse, you're looking at maybe 5% of the data you should be looking at, right? There's data streams coming in, there's Internet of Things, there are things that are born digital and things that are born analog that need to be included in how you make those decisions. And if you're trying to make good decisions, like most of our government partners are constantly every day, it's a disservice to them to not have access to all that data that they need to make that right decision.
A specific example of this is an HPC. Traditionally, HPC has been very siloed, very custom. And the ultimate goal would be to centralize, centralize as much of that as possible. With the convergence of AI and HPC, it's becoming more and more possible, but you still have the challenges of secure data transfer and chargeback and so forth. And so we're solving for one thing on the ISV side in terms of performance and the convergence of AI and HPC, but I think we still have some other challenges to resolve.
Well, that seems like a good plot to stop for this first part of our discussions today. I hope you will join us for the second half of our roundtable when we'll be talking about achieving digital maturity. I want to thank our amazing FSI experts today, Doug Bourgeois, the Managing Director for Engineering Transformation at Deloitte, Richard Jasek, the Chief Digital Officer and Senior Vice President at Brilliant, Adam Shepard, the NG Fellow for Digital Engineering at Northrop Grumman, and Mike Watkinson, the Chief Revenue Officer at Future Tech Enterprise. Please visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Future Tech for more on our series, Delivering the Tech That Delivers for Government. I'm Vanessa Roberts. Have a great day and see you soon on Federal News Network.